In part one, we talked about the definition of ethics. We talked about the sources of ethics, and we talked about the need for an organization to have an ethical statement. In this program, we're going to talk about ethics programs. In this part, we're going to talk about what ethics programs are and how they are important to an organization. First of all, an ethics program should distinguish between what is ethical and what is legal. We gave an example in the last section about an expired drug. I'll give you another example. Those of you in the medical field are familiar with what a DNR is, do not resuscitate, right? And we have to apply these rules every day, and sometimes it's an ethical dilemma for a lot of people. For example, you go to a house and you know that the individual has a DNR. However, the DNR isn't properly signed, it's not on the proper paperwork, and you know that the individual has expressed to you during past visits that they did not want to be resuscitated. Unfortunately, the legal aspect, the legal part of it, it's not a legal document because it's not properly signed, it's not properly notated by a physician, and it's not durable. It's not going to stand up in court. So legally, you don't have any grounds to withhold CPR. However, you know ethically in your heart that this is what this individual wanted, and the humane thing is to follow their wishes. Unfortunately, you're bound by the law. You're bound by your duty ethics to resuscitate this patient, even though you know that it's not what their intents were. Same situation, same type of call. You go there and there is a durable DNR, and you know that the patient wanted that DNR to be enforced. However, when you arrive, the family has had second thoughts and the family wants you to resuscitate. Now you really have an ethical dilemma because you have a durable document that allows you to let that person expire humanely, and you're going against their wishes by performing any kind of CPR or any kind of emergency first aid, and the family wants you to. So again, it's an ethical dilemma. What are you bound to? You're bound by the law for the individual who signed that document to withhold CPR. It's durable, it has a signature, it's on the correct paper, but you're also in an ethical dilemma because the family is begging you and asking you to intervene. So again, there has to be a definition between ethics and legality. Second, there has to be a measure to enforce ethical programs, program provisions. A department that has an ethical statement but doesn't enforce it, it's kind of like telling your children to be home by 9 o'clock but never grounding them when they're late. You have to have some kind of meat to your enforcement, to your program. Otherwise, deviation from the program is not going to have any kind of consequence. Third, you have to conduct formal training. You need to make sure that your people understand what the program is and how it works and why we have a set of ethics for the organization. Because this way they understand the ethics that are being applied and how to apply those ethics in their decision making. The training is very important because if the people are not trained to the same level, you may have people applying their own ethical standards instead of the department or organizational ethical standards to their daily encounters. And then finally, you need to evaluate and you need to revise the program as time goes by. We have a lot of new things coming into the fire service. We have a lot of issues that are quite not addressed yet. For example, social media. It's constantly changing and it's constantly providing challenges for fire service administrators as well as firefighters. What to do, what you can do, what you can't do, posting of photographs, posting of information, making statements. Where does your First Amendment right end and where does your responsibility to your organization begin? These are questions that have not totally been answered. They haven't gone through the legal system yet. So there are not any cut and dry black and white answers. So evaluation and revision to an ethical program is very vital because there are going to be changes as time goes by. Okay, developing an ethics program. When you develop an ethics program, you need to address a number of issues. First of all, one of the issues that needs to be addressed is the relationships between your individuals, your workers. Relationships between officers and subordinates. Relationships between personnel that work on the job. You also need to address relationships between people that are naturally related on the job. For example, sons and daughters and husbands and wives and brothers. How does that work when you have two people working in the same battalion on the same shift? Or how does it work when you have two people that for that particular day happen to be in the same station? There needs to be some kind of boundaries and guidelines set for that type of relationship. And then again, relationship between the individuals working in the station, understanding that subordinates have a certain relationship with their supervisors, and there should be clear-cut lines that are not crossed. Also, relationships with the public. When we deal with the public on a daily basis, there has to be some kind of definition as to what and how we interact with the public, and that should be expressed in ethical terms. Additionally, we are trusted with government property, whether it's a take-home vehicle or personal equipment or any other type of equipment that is not ours, it's purchased for us by our organization. We're entrusted with that, and we have to have certain understanding of what we can and cannot do. For example, if it's a take-home car, can you use it to run errands or personal errands? Do you have that ability? Do you have to pay for fuel that you use when you're engaged in personal activities? All those things need to be spelled out in that ethics program. Another thing that tends to trip people up is the acceptance of gifts. A department should have a gift policy. In other words, some way that individuals, if they are given a gift by a grateful public, they have an ability to accept it without being rude or hurting somebody's feelings, but also with the same token, understanding the value of the gift has to be within a certain parameter as well. Gifts also from other agencies or from people outside of the department. For example, if a vendor wants to provide gifts to your personnel, understanding that those gifts are not an influence for favor or position. It has to be established, and there has to be some kind of limit to what the value of that gift might be. Another thing that has to be spelled out is any potential conflicts of interest. Conflict of interest could arise from part-time employment or extra hours or extra employment opportunities or relationships that employees may have with people that work for other corporations that do business with your organization. These are all important and they need to be addressed. What type of relationships should they have with people that work with other companies, and are they permitted to work for other companies that do business with your organization, and what role do they play in your organization, and what kind of influence could they subject if they were trying to win favor for their company or their corporation. Another thing that's important is financial disclosure. Like we say, where there could be equal opportunity for a conflict of interest arising from somebody who may gain to profit from an organization that does well or receives a contract awarded by your department. If they owned stock in an apparatus manufacturer and your department awards a large contract to that apparatus manufacturer, there might be some financial gain. Whether or not it's intentional, it could show or demonstrate impropriety, and it could be a problem for the department. So there needs to be some form of oversight in that area, and that should be addressed in the ethics program as well. Information management. This is a really hot subject now, especially with HIPAA and all of the things that we've seen over the past couple of years. You know, the funny thing about it is that the Health Insurance Portability Act has been around since 1974, but certain aspects of it have only recently become enforceable. And I think it's important that we understand that HIPAA applies to a lot of things we do. Unfortunately, we think that HIPAA just applies to the release of personal information about patients. But we see a lot of firefighters taking photographs at scenes, traffic accidents, medical scenes, fires, what have you. And in the background often could be patients. And if those patients' photographs turn up on Facebook, there can be a problem concerning a HIPAA violation because the patient has certain rights. They have rights to privacy. And if that information shows up on a public media site or even on a PIO's camera, could be problematic for the department because now you've violated that individual's HIPAA rights. Another important component of an ethics program should concern discrimination in hiring, promoting, disciplining, and employee relations. A very important aspect of what the tolerance level of the agency would be and what are the expectations of the agency regarding their promotion and employment of individuals. Another component of an ethics program should be elements of public trust, understanding that we are given a considerable amount of public trust because of our positions, because of who we are and what we do. And there should be an element in there that addresses controlling that and what we do in not just our professional lives, but in our personal lives. Another component of ethics programs should be how we address federal, state, and local laws. As a government agency or a quasi-government agency, we are bound to follow those laws. We're bound by ordinance, regulation, or authority to enforce those laws in some cases. So we need to understand what our duties are as firefighters and what responsibilities we have to enforce and obey and follow the individual laws of the state, local area, county, municipality, and the federal government. Additionally, inside the ethics statement and ethics program, there should be discussion about following departmental rules, regulations, collective bargaining agreements, and other provisions that are set between the agency and its members. Those are, paramount. Basically, your operating system, your rules, how you should carry yourselves, and there needs to be some way to address that to ensure that your rules are in congruence with your ethics policy, and vice versa. Your ethics policy is in congruence with your SOPs and your standards. Another provision that's sometimes overlooked in ethics programs is the concept of loyalty. Being loyal to the organization, being loyal to your fellow firefighters, being loyal to the community, being loyal to the government. All of those are usually components of a good ethics system that build on the sense of community, the sense of loyalty for your organization. Additionally, there are 4 components that should be part of an ethics program. First of all, the theory of professionalism. In the fire service, we've worked very hard to develop this into a profession. Skilled employees that go to school, that attend conferences, that are a member of a professional society governed by a set of standards, set of rules. We have professional memberships in organizations such as the International Association of Firefighters, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, Volunteer Firefighters Associations. All of that, we've become a professional entity. In addition to professionalism, integrity, truthfulness, and obedience are major components of what makes you a professional. Integrity is saying what you're going to do and doing it. Integrity is doing what you think is right or you know is right, even when nobody's looking. Holding yourself to your word. Those are all components of integrity. Obedience. Obedience to the agency. Obedience to your superior officers. Doing what you're told to do. Being respectful at all times. And obedience to the general public sometimes. Understanding that when we respond to a call, it may be our 15th call of the day, but it's the person who's dialing 911's first, and we need to treat them like they were the first patient that we were dealing with. We need to carry that customer service out there. That's a very important part. Being truthful, that's part of integrity. Being honest and truthful with the way you carry yourself on the job. Making sure that you file reports accurately. Making sure that if something happens, you file the truth, explain the truth. It's a lot easier to tell the truth, even though it might be bad, than to tell a lie and know it's going to get worse. At the end of this chapter, I'm going to refer you to a document. I want you to read through the document. The document is entitled Taking Responsibility for a Positive Public Perception. It's authored by the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and essentially what it is, it's a document to kind of make us aware of the changing environment we're in. What do I mean by that? Well, essentially, I think the world is getting much smaller, okay? The world is getting very small because what happens now in today's world, in just about everywhere you go, you have camera phones, you have videography, you have video cameras videotaping you from a vantage point. There's almost infinite number of opportunities for us to be observed and captured. And that activity can be replayed for people to see. And, we're used to living in the moment. Okay, you live in the moment and you know what you're doing at that particular moment. You have a certain perception of yourself. Well, what I want you to do is the next time you're out on an emergency, and don't distract from doing your job. Do your job as best you can. But take a look around you. If there's a large enough crowd there, I'll almost guarantee you that at least 1 or 2 people has a camera phone. Whether they're taking streaming video or taking straight pictures, they're going to be taking photographs of what's going on the scene. And it's only anybody's guess as to where that media is going. Could be going to Facebook. It could be going to, a news channel. It could be going on to Twitter. Any number of places that video could be going to. And again, we have to understand what we look like when somebody else is looking at us from the outside. We know what we think we look like from the inside, but you have to kind of put yourself outside of your body and see what the perception of other people of how we do our job. What's your tone? How do you talk to the patient? Are you carrying yourself professionally? Are you wearing the appropriate uniform? All these things are important. And we have to understand that as a department, we're dependent upon public funds. We're dependent on tax dollars. Almost every department out there, unless you're a privately owned department by a private corporation, you're usually looking and waiting for a share of public funds. And the perception that the public has of their public service agencies like police departments and fire departments and sheriff's agencies, the perception that they have needs to be positive, because when it comes down to time asking for the public to give us money to do things, to purchase equipment or to buy stations and have stations built, to hire new firefighters, all those things we're going to the public for, we need to have their trust and support. So again, looking at this, the International Association of Firefighters took a look at firefighters in general and some of the antics that we've pulled, some of the things that we've done. And it's important that firefighters stop and take a moment and think about what we're doing and how we are representing ourselves in public. And I think the common sense of it is understanding that when you're going out on a Friday night drinking with your buddies, it's probably not a good idea to be wearing your duty shirt, wearing a uniform shirt that says, "Hey, I'm a firefighter." Because now, when you go out and you want to act a little fool, that's your right. You're more than welcome to do that. And you probably earned it because you've worked very hard throughout the week. So you want to go out and you want to blow off some steam. But if you do so in representing the fire department, whether it's your agency or whether it's the fire department in general, just because you have a generic shirt on, you're still representing firefighters as a whole. And you're representing a profession. How many times you drive up and down the road, you see a union sticker, International Association of Firefighters. People are starting to learn what those mean. When you're out there and acting like a fool in the public and you're cutting people off in your car and you're doing things, that sticker is a representation of the fire service. We have to be aware of how we represent the profession when we're out in public, whether it's on duty and off duty. And that representation, believe it or not, just chisels away at the public trust that we have. And it's so much more important now to have that public trust, because our resources are dwindling. The things that we need to do our jobs are slowly going away. And we need 100% of that public trust. And also the society that we're growing into right now doesn't have the same traditional standards as the older society, where they believed in public servants. They believed in agencies that provided public service. The economy is driving people into lower jobs. The economy is hurting people, and they're seeing firefighters and police officers with guaranteed paychecks and safe jobs, and they're looking at us and saying, well, why do they have this and why do they have that when we don't have this and we don't have that? And again, we have to look at that and understand that their perspective and their perception of us isn't what it used to be.